Alright, in the video today we're going to glass up this cardboard so we can get it nice and hard with a fiberglass covering, and we'll be able to put some Bondo and eventually some paint on there. But the way it is right now, with just it being paper, it needs to be treated. Well, one of the things that we're also going to do on this is there's a little bit of warping. You know, the hot glue is hot, and when it gets cold it shrinks. It's like anything, it causes a little bit of warping. So we're going to put some fiberglass resin on this raw cardboard and put it in place, and then clamp it or weigh it down so that it will keep its shape. And once it's firm, then we can continue with the rest of the fiberglass work outside of the car, so we don't make a big mess of the car. But first thing today is, like you see, I've taped it off here. We're going to get and we're going to put a coat of resin on all this raw cardboard. I don't think I'm going to mess with the paper just yet, but all this raw cardboard, we're going to put a coat of resin on there. Not actually put any fiberglass sheeting on it, and none of the material, the cloth, just resin to make this hard, so that we can continue working with it over on the work table over there. All right, so let's get to mixing this stuff up. The instructions say to mix it 1/4 volume by 1/4 volume of the hardener. Well, the problem with that is that once you've used it, it's difficult to figure out how much is a 1/4 volume, because you don't know how much it was to begin with, right? So we're going to go ahead and measure, assuming that 28 fluid ounces versus, I think this was, what did it come out to? 0.37 fluid ounces. When you do the math on that, it comes out to, I need a mark on this. 1.7 is what we're going to do. 1.7 fluid ounces to, believe it or not, 2/3 of a tablespoon. I did the math on that, and it kind of works out, but it's going to be different whatever you're doing. You could start with a brand new container and just use a 1/4, or you can measure it out to get equal portions based on the volume. But it's just a math problem that you'll have to figure out. It's a very, very small portion of hardener. But the worst case scenario is that you run out of hardener before you run out of resin. So you kind of want to get it right. And the other problem would be is if you didn't put enough hardener and you went through all the trouble and you had this resin all painted on there and it never got hard, that would be a real pain in the butt. So anyway, I'm going to get to mixing this up. And you like my deluxe gloves? And then we'll start painting. All right, we got this thing all mixed up nice. We don't worry about bubbles on this in this case, because we're not going to put any glass on there, and any kind of bubbles or anything, we're going to sand it, and we're also going to put Bondo on it, so it's not like it's a finished coat. But just make sure you get a good stir on that, and just start painting. That's what we're going to do. Just try to get this hard. We're not going to even put any glass on it. Nope. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put some fiberglass and some fiberglass material, the resin and material over the top of this arc. I'm going to go ahead and flip this so we can get a better idea of what it looks like on the camera. And hopefully I got enough resin in this batch to at least do one of these. I think I do. So I'm just going to put a couple of little dabs on it to get the surface wet. That should be good enough to get some of the material to stick. And I've pre-cut these the shapes. Should be able to get this to go over the top. There we go. As this gathers, I'm going to cut with some scissors right here to do an overlap. Mess here. Okay. All right, well, we'll check back in a few hours after it's firmed up a little. Hopefully this will make the entire mold a little more firm so we can start doing some finish shaping on it and get a coat of primer on it ready for paint. All right, so there you go. A few hours later, it's nice and firmed up. And now we can start with rough shaping. We have a lot of really rough edges here that we need to shave off, and there's some irregularities. Like there's a little bump right here. I think I've got a blister right here. So we're going to take a sanding wheel and shape these things down to the point where we can start applying some Bondo to do some final shaping. And there's a big groove right in here. You know, all that stuff's going to go away. But the important thing is that it's firm. It's essentially a fiberglass unit right now. I like the progress. There's still a lot of work to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start shaving these down, and then we'll check back in when we get ready to put some Bondo on there. All right, so there you go. All sanded down. All the high spots are down. Now we're going to use the Bondo to fill in the low spots. There are these little blisters. Knock those blisters down with my little pneumatic grinder. And you can see here the tip of the taper has kind of been a little bit better defined now that I have something hard to work off of. So all the high spots and rings and drips and whatnot have all been knocked down. And all we need to do now is fill it in with, fill the low spots with Bondo. So let's get started with the Bondo. Brand new open can. This is standard Bondo. Brand new open can. Look how much is missing out of a brand new open can. Kind of amazes me. We'll have a look at the next can that I buy and see if we can compare the difference. All right, so the ratio on this Bondo filler is 50 grams of filler to 1 gram of hardener. So we're going to go ahead and measure this up to get a ballpark of what we think it's going to be. And let's see what 50 grams looks like. Okay, so 5 times that. Also, this is a fast drying version of the hardener. So you want to get things moving. So we're going to be doing small batches just to keep things copacetic. There we go, exactly 50 grams. Who could have figured? Now, it should be easy to get 1 gram of hardener, you would think. It's always a good idea to kind of mix these hardeners up so if any chemicals get separated or anything. So just kind of knead a little bit and we'll see if we can squeeze out 1 gram. Here we go, there's 1 gram. Ooh. All right, there's 51 grams of material. Let's go ahead and get this mixed up. Now we're going to mix this up and then I'm going to apply it to make it flat and level. We're going to go with working on the level surfaces first. This is blue Bondo. Just want to make sure you get all the right color. Everything has the same uniform color. Let me move this off. I like using these Chinese food takeout containers, because you can recycle them like this and use them for different purposes. Unlike the fiberglass, this Bondo is really easy to shape as you're applying it. The fiberglass resin just kind of flows onto whatever form that you give it. But this stuff, you can shape it very easily. There we go, we're getting a nice uniform color. Now you want to make sure that you don't have any on the bottom that's not getting mixed. You want to scrape it all off. And make sure that you're turning it over completely. And I'm going to clean my scraper here. Probably a good idea to have 2 scrapers. But I want to make sure that there's no unmixed hardener or resin. See, there's a little bit of unused hardener on that side. There you go. And we'll get back to mixing again. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's just go ahead and get this middle piece because there's a big groove right here that needs it. Okay, well, I'm happy with that. That's a good first coat. We just want to fill in the low spots. We're gonna go back and sand this so that all those low spots will keep their filler, and then the high spots will come back up. We're gonna go ahead and start making a couple more of these, and we'll start working it around, and then we'll get working on these rounded edges. The rounded edge is a bit more tricky, but again, we want to fill in the low spots and edge off the high spots. So we'll just kind of be working it down like that. All right, so let's break back in once we make some more progress. All right, so a little bit of preliminary block sanding. Here, I got a block here with some 80 grit sandpaper. A little preliminary sanding to get some shape, try to figure out what's high and what's low. We have a high spot here I didn't even see. I knew we had a low spot across here. And you can see as I was sanding, it's sanded here and it's sanded there, but it missed all the way across here. So I'm going to have to add some more filler right in here just to get this to be flat lengthwise. The rest of this is really not that big a deal. Some of this will sand out nicely. This right here I knew was a high spot. There was a little dribble of resin from the fiberglass that dribbled right in here, so I knew about this high spot. So this is really not a low spot right here. That's just need to sand this some more. But this was kind of a surprise right here, and I can feel it. I'm running my hand over. There is definitely a high spot right there. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some more Bondo in this area, and maybe a little here and a little bit here to try to even out this high spot. We'll see if we can make that happen. The other sides are still drying, and then we'll get a preliminary dusting off that. You can see there's a groove right here, but we'll see how much of that's left once we do our preliminary sanding. All right, so I've gone ahead and circled low spots. I don't know if you can see my little marks. Circled these low spots. Some of these are just grooves that were in the cardboard, and they, you know, when you put the Bondo in the first layer, it's really thick. It will shrink quite a bit when it dries. And so that's a lot of this is just shrinkage factor. A little bit of a pit right here. This is it's a high spot with two low spots here. This right here is a major groove all along here. Sanding went from here to there and didn't even touch hardly any of this. So we're gonna have to fill a whole lot in here. This area right here has a bit of a void, only because this is kind of a high spot. So we're gonna build this back up so that we can get them to match. Over here again, it's another crease in the cardboard that when the Bondo dried, it shrunk. So this minor little thing right here. So it's gonna go ahead and put another coat of Bondo in there, and then we'll sand it up and see how close we are to throwing some primer on it. But before we get to the primer, we're going to go ahead and get to these curved sections. When you look at these curved sections, you can see they're actually not really all that curved. They're kind of ribbed. They have a rib going this way and a rib going that way. And I was able to knock down some of the edges here, but it's going to be a lot of fill. So the Bondo on these big teardrop shapes is going to be quite involved, and the sanding will be really tricky too, because you can't sand this way. You have to sand this way, and there's even an arc on that, so you don't want to cause any low spots. So it's going to be kind of tricky to get that. I think mostly that will just be done by hand. All right, let's move on. So I just kind of wanted to break in the action here to show you the different phases of filling on this. So first of all, if you recall, we did the forms, and then we laid paper strips across. These were kind of a thick cardboard paper. And then we ran fiberglass over the top of that. And that filled all the gaps, and it gave us a hard surface that we could work from. But what this also did is it made some ridges. I don't know if you can see it, but each place where these overlap, there's a bit of a ridge. And the fiberglass transferred that ridge into kind of a rounded edge, but it's still a ridge. The Bondo is going to cover that out and fill the low spots so that the ridges, you can see like over here, the ridges will remain, but the Bondo will fill that in, right? And then, so then everything will come down here, and then for this bottom edge down here, this will come to a point, and we'll be able to shape this with the Bondo. And we're doing that by, you know, sanding it into shape. And then as you're filling it here, you'll find the highs and the low spots that you can come back in with more filler and create the shape as it forms. So you don't have to worry about, you know, getting it right the first time. We're going to come back and fill some of these little divots in places where we didn't get enough Bondo, and we're gonna sand the rest of it all off, and then we'll get a nice uniform shape. Now you'll notice on this one that it looks a little bit rough. I haven't actually sanded this. When you apply the Bondo, while it's still warm but not sticky to touch, but while it's still setting, it's kind of green. And you can actually run a rasp over the top of the green Bondo, and it will shave it away. You can see the pieces that you can shave off. And that saves a whole bunch of sanding and a whole bunch of dust. You don't get nearly as much dust that way if you can shave away big chunks. So that's one little trick that you'll learn on that. The other thing is, always try to use a clean container between layers as you do another batch, because the little pieces that will get left in the container will firm up, and then when you put them on, they'll transfer into your new batch, and you'll get lumps. And lumps are bad because it makes lines in the Bondo as you're trying to work it. Now, usually when you're doing Bondo, you want to match it to a fender or something. In this case, we have a really severe curve, so the paddle that we're using, you can't bend it that far. So all we're really doing is trying to find ways that we can get the closest pattern across without scooping underneath all of those ridges. So I'm going to continue sanding, and we'll get the next batch Bondo over here, and then we'll cut back in when we get ready to finish with the shaping. Feel this is just a little warm, but it's not sticky. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit it with a rasp. They really don't clog up that much. All right, let's let that dry up well, get hard, and then we'll start sanding. All right, well, we're getting a lot closer. You see there's still a couple of these little bumps I need to fill in. Just some finish work, and just wanted to put it back in the car to make sure it all fits right. You do still have a little bit of a rise right here. I thought I'd get that warping out, but it's still a little bit. It's negligible. I mean, I could probably, when we get to the actual form, we can probably fix that at that point. But other than that, the shape is looking pretty sound. I think it's going to be pretty good. This is just the plug again, just to remind you that this is the plug that will be the form that we'll make the form from. It's the plug from the form, and then once we get the form, we'll put the fiberglass into that form, and then we'll have the finished product. Now, if you're looking at this and wondering, I haven't been doing any work on the bottom edge down here. This bottom edge. The only thing that we're going to make with this form is everything that you see here that's white. The remainder of all this brown part where the raw cardboard is, that's going to be made out of wood. And the reason why we're going to make that out of wood is so that you can screw a speaker into here or something in case you want to put some pads or something on there. I want to make it something that you could throw a staple or a screw into. So this part will be wood, and then the fiberglass form will go over the top of that. All right, let's finish up, and then maybe if we can get a coat of sandable primer on it today. All right, well, that's where I'm going to finish for tonight. But you can see I've got it all primed up. We've got all of the rough sanding and shaping done. Now we're going to get on to the finish coat. The idea behind the finish coat is that when this plug is turned into a form, the closest we have it to finished form, the better. There's a lot less work after the fact. Once you spit out one of the molds, productions. Once you get an actual mold made, it'll be closer to finished, and you won't have to do so much work. So that's really what this is all about. We got it nice and uniform and symmetric. I think the shape has progressed nicely. I like this curvy shape, and we've even got, let me show you. We've got the taper down to a nice point here. And we just a little bit of more detail sanding, get a couple coats of color on there, and then some clear coat. And then we're going to wax it up so that we can get a good mold release on there so we can use this as a plug. But that's what we'll do next week. We'll be finishing up with the finished coat, the finished sanding. So make sure you check back again next week and see how the progress is. So I have, cheers.